Good morning, Yasha Allah. Good morning, world. We bring you another in the series of the sealing of the 12 tribes of Yasha Allah. And what we're doing now is actually to give you, we're going to try to give you as best we can a graphic representation of our Jesuit priests, Levitical fallen priesthood, oath accomplishment. Our scripture lesson or the reading is from Bereshith, or Genesis chapter 49, verse 5, which says, Shimeon, some versions say Simeon, and Levi are brothers. Their weapons are implements of violence. So we have spoken at length about the issues of the 400 years enslavement of the 12 tribes. And what we have been blessed to do is produce incontrovertible evidence of effects of the 400 years brutal handling and treatment of the children. The covenant promised children of Abraham, 12 tribes. We came to speak about the blood oath covenant of Esau and Levi under the revelation of the French Haitian, what's the word they call it? The revolution, that historic revolution that comes out in the introduction of some horses riding in the book of Revelation, chapter 5. Some horses were riding. And one specimen of the horses riding portrays the French Revolution. And our commentary was, or is, that the French Revolution under Napoleon's generalship could not be left out of mention because of the weight of its action and the accomplishment of the revolution that actually achieve the result of the fallen Levitical priesthood signing themselves over to the ownership of the fallen one, Satan. Now, of course, we showed you in other presentations, according to scripture, that Satan was after them, or Satan was seeking to capture them for a long time. Remember how we read in, I think, is it in Exodus, I believe it is, between Exodus and Leviticus, and maybe the book of Numbers, in those areas, we read of Levi offering strange fire before the Most High to manage the consumption of the sacrificial offering. And this strange fire was from Satan. And having been introduced to it, Levi, even though the two brothers, sons of Aaron, were slain, destroyed by the Most High for their action, the Levites continued their quest to seek for further induction into the satanic production that led to their serious fall. Well, that continued their fall into the Napoleonic Wars and the Blood Oath Covenant. And we have the privilege to show you how that in the delivery of the mission of that Blood Oath Covenant, Napoleon and the Catholic Church succeeded in having the fallen Levites sign over. I use that term. That's my term. He had the fallen Levites sign over their allegiance of comradeship to a deeper level of commitment that brought forth their willingness to take on the anti-messiahship because of their hatred for the Mashiach, for the Blessed One of the Shamayim, that their leader was envious against from in the Shamayim. The one altogether lovely, our Malak. The Blessed One, the Prince of Shalom, Mashiach, the power of Abanawa for salvation. And so from the blood oath covenant, or in the execution of the blood oath covenant, was achieved the Haitians, fallen Levites, turning their allegiance completely over under Satan. And in that, committing themselves to the anti-messiahship, which in my view was and continues to be a master stroke of Napoleon and the Catholic Church. Whereas Esau himself claimed the anti-messiahship, he now had an ally, Levi. So what we come to do here today, not going to keep you long. We wanted to show you a little bit of graphic, albeit that my presentation of this graphic is by no means perfect, and not even what I wanted to be to show to you. I suppose mainly because of my lack of computer skill, I wanted to show you, by the power of the Ruach, the result of Levi's commitment to the struggle of feeding France. In their quest for economic viability, and they're breaking away from the rules and order of their Catholic regiment. Levi's part was to ditch the priesthood of the Most High, of the Mashiach. He had rid of the Mashiach, and in so doing, by his voodoo power, voodoo knowledge that he and Simeon shared together in the execution of the 400 years enslavement. But Levi himself was the main actor in the blood oath covenant issue, whereby Levi, for his part, committed himself to the mystical voodoo implementation of their art of destruction that the scriptures speak about, their art of destruction of the house of Judah, of Yahweh, and of the 12 tribes generally. And so we want to show you, try to produce for you a graphic to describe the method Levi used, that he produced as a knowledge of the priesthood in connection with the underground, with Satan. And I shared with you then how Levi did his part to assist in the destruction of the house of Judah and altogether the 12 tribes, by using the voodoo power, the electric current is, I want to use a simple way of expressing it. And I'm aware that the method of conducting the process that Levi chose, which was to block up the brain waves, block up the brain's ability to focus the attention of the tribes on the matter at hand that they were faced with. The method used to block their intelligence processes in their brain, in their heart. And the way I have described it already was that, first of all, this was the mastermind. This is the mastermind that was behind, still is behind the whole operation of the destruction of the 12 tribes. And this was the mastermind that is commonly known, I think, all over the earth by now, as the Baphomet. And you see him having the pentagram carved in his forehead, the greatest Masonic symbol, pentagram, that was on the seal of Solomon. He wears it, and he makes his children, Edom, wear the 6-pointed star. They wanted the 5-pointed star, but their boss said, "This is my prerogative right here. I'll have the 5-pointed star of the pentagram, and you take the 6 of I think it's the hexagram." But this is he who drove the Levites, fallen Levites, into the creation of voodoo magical powers to block the activity of the brain and put the tribes in lockdown for so many years since the French Revolution. That was some approximately 100, 200 years, whatever the number is. I'm not going to go into the calculations right now, but you remember the revolution was in the late 1700s. And the Levites entered, directly into the struggle when they proceeded to turn their allegiance away from the Mashiach and give it directly to Satan. And that process is falsely represented to us as the Haitian Revolution. And there are still many who wish to give proclamation to a great achievement of the so-called Haitians in their revolution for independence. But it was a revolution of leaving the priesthood under the order of the Ruach and the Most High and the Mashiach. This was the splendid achievement of our chief adversary, Edom, Napoleon. And so Levi's offering to the strength of the revolution was to use his voodoo magical powers under the direction of his boss, his new boss, Gadriel. Again, show you a picture of the new boss, the one guiding, directing, instructing the Levites in their art of war against the Most High, the Mashiach, and the nation. So they used their magical powers, their voodoo powers, to set a frequency blockage between the two hemispheres of the brain. Try to give you, I don't fancy that this graphic is the best that you could have. And forgive my lack of computer expertise. I try to show you the two hemispheres of the brain. And in their work, Levi put a blockage between these hemispheres of the brain. And imagine you would put, let's say, a sheet of lumber, a sheet of maybe cobalt steel or something like that, something that could block. The steel might still conduct the frequency, but I'm speaking in terms of something that would block the frequency of the brain waves, so that the two hemispheres of the brain would not be able to communicate with one another, and hence be unable to guide or lead the human machinery, the human individual, to guide them in the matter of executing, their way of life. This blockage of the frequency, it was a frequency blockage that Levi put between the two hemispheres of the brain and shut off. He practically shut it off. His aim was to shut it down completely. But this is the creation of the Most High, and it's very difficult, and next to impossible to shut down the work of the Most High. But they did what they could do to block the communication of the brain. Two sides of the brain are involved with ordering our lives as human individuals. And when they put in this frequency blockage to the brain, it produced the chaos that we find history in agreement with. The widespread health issues in the diaspora all kinds of health issues were caused by this blockage of the brain that Levi did, that Levi executed. All kinds of health issues. I mean, given the fact that when the eyes of our first father and mother were open, beginning with the mother, the spirit of Gadriel and all the fallen ones were allowed to enter through the eyes, your very eyes and my eyes. They were able to enter into the body of the human through the eyes. But in fact, Levi achieved the mission of blocking brain communication. And through the machinery into confusion, total chaos, to assist Esau in his work of willingness to destroy the birthright blessing and the chief mission of the birthright actually was to produce the Mashiach himself. But of course, there was the community, his playmates that came before him to assist him in his growth and help him in the conduct of his ministry. They're called the 12 tribes. And that blockage that Levi put up during the French Revolution and in the priestly covenant that was made, the Levites decided to use their talent under the guidance of Satan to do a voodoo experiment to block the frequency of brain waves connection and transference, however it needs to be allowed to do for the smooth operation of the human machinery. This was the masterwork of Levi in the 400 years, within the 400 years of experimentation. And so we've shared with you some highlights of the 400 years accomplishments, which was the scattering of the tribes all over the place, all over the earth, according to the book of Luke, chapter 21. And which shows us, in the words of the Mashiach, that Jerusalem would be trodden down by the Gentiles. That's who's in the land, Gentiles claiming to be us. These Gentiles are one tribe. I have to get a good laugh out at this. They have one tribe and they call themselves Jews. This is Esau now, the hater of the birthright, the despiser of the birthright, according to the book of Genesis. Bereshith despised it and wished to lay claim to it at the will of this absolute hatred for the Mashiach. I wonder if you notice with me that all the hatred that is being passed around in, well, let's use the loose word religious circles. All the hatred that is being passed around is against the Mashiach. All of it. A-L-L, all of it. Hatred against the Mashiach. And so the masterpiece of Levi's accomplishment and his contribution to what we call the French Revolution was to disturb the brain at such a level that integral connection was pretty near impossible. And I've shared with you highlights of the enslavement period and the processes that were used. In them was this use of Esau's voodoo to block the brain and create all the mayhem and destruction that was over the Caribbean, America and the Caribbean. It was from Levi's voodoo and disturbance of the brain. So you had the killing of Yasha'Allah, the children of the Most High, that try to organize themselves, for physical fighting, if need be, to organize themselves to move themselves forward. But that voodoo disturbing the brain had everything in disarray. And so the leaders that were trying to get it together and give direction to the efforts found themselves being attacked by police dogs in the mix. But that brain disturbance was the main thing. What do you call it? The Blood Oath Covenant? That's what it was about. It came to end not very long ago with the death of the last president. That brought to an end the Blood Oath Covenant. So we thought to show you a little of Levi's work in destroying the brain connection. My graphic is not the best, hardly near to being what I really intend. But I want to just show you, for you to be able to see and imagine what it might have been like. Well, I mean, you actually went through what the processes were to accomplish. You had the turmoil, you had the gout and the pains and, inability to coordinate your body movements because of the interception of your brain waves under the Haitian voodoo. That was a part of the Blood Oath Covenant. That was Levi's contribution to it. And so with that, I think I'll end this session. Until next time, Yasha'Allah. Peace, shalom, in our King, Mashiach, the undaunted warrior of Abanawa, our Father. Bless you, Yasha'Allah.